All right, let's jump right into this explainer. We really need to address the elephant in the room when it comes to coffee. For a ton of coffee lovers out there, just hearing the word decaf instantly brings up a whole lot of suspicion. There are these incredibly persistent myths about what is actually hiding in your decaf cup. And today, we're going to clear the air using pure chemistry and hard data.
I mean, have you ever actually stared at your mug and thought, wait, does my decaf contain harsh chemicals, or worse, is there just straight-up caffeine still in here? Today, we are unpacking the fascinating science of decaffeination to discover if your morning cup is truly chemical-free and caffeine-free. We're going to look at everything from supercritical fluids right down to laboratory mass spectrometry.
So, let's hit our first topic, the decaf dilemma, moving from toxic origins to modern science.
To really get why we're all so skeptical about decaf, we kind of have to look back at its, honestly, pretty toxic origins. It helps you appreciate just how incredibly clean modern producer chemistry actually is. It all started way back in 1903. A German merchant named Ludwig Roselius was the very first person to extract caffeine from green coffee beans. The big problem? He used benzene, which we absolutely know today is highly toxic and carcinogenic. Obviously, that method didn't stick around. By the 1930s, the chemical-free Swiss water process was developed in Switzerland, although it really wasn't used commercially until much later. And speaking of later, the 1980s is when we saw the industrialization of supercritical CO2 decaffeination. So we've gone from literally dangerous experiments to highly sophisticated, incredibly safe extraction methods.
Now, you might be thinking we're totally out of the woods, but chemical solvents haven't completely vanished. Get this. The FDA actually still permits up to 10 parts per million of methylene chloride residue in roasted decaf coffee. Methylene chloride is a synthetic solvent, and it's still widely used for everyday commodity decaf. Now, to be fair, independent testing usually finds that the actual residue left in your cup is less than 1 ppm, which is well below safety limits. But it's still a synthetic chemical process, and that actually led the EU to ban its use in production starting in 2024, mostly out of concern for the workers handling it.
Which brings us right to our second section, solvents and supercritical CO2, or the actual chemistry of extraction.
The whole trick here is pulling the caffeine out of those porous, green, unroasted beans without dragging all the delicious flavor out with it. We've got two main solvent players here. First is that methylene chloride, or DCM. It's a synthetic, strong, non-polar solvent. It does a great job binding to caffeine, but unfortunately, it can also strip away some of the delicate lipophilic flavor precursors. That's why some decafs end up tasting a little flat. Then we have ethyl acetate, or EA. This is actually a naturally occurring ester. You'll find it in ripe fruit and sugarcane. When it's sourced from sugarcane, you'll usually see it marketed as the natural or sugarcane process. EA is highly selective, meaning it preserves the bean's natural acidity and those bright, fruity notes way better than DCM.
But what if we want to ditch liquid solvents completely? Well, we turn to physics. Enter what I like to call the supercritical surprise. We're talking about supercritical CO2. This is carbon dioxide that has been pressurized above 73 atmospheres and heated past 31 degrees Celsius. In this bizarre phase state, it literally acts as both a liquid and a gas. It possesses the density of a liquid, allowing it to easily dissolve compounds, but it has the diffusivity of a gas, meaning it can rapidly penetrate right into the dense cellular structure of the coffee beans.
So, why does this CO2 method preserve flavor so beautifully? It basically boils down to Hansen's solubility parameters. By tweaking the pressure and temperature, scientists can actually tune the CO2 so its extraction window perfectly matches the molecular weight and polarity of caffeine. It completely ignores the lighter, volatile aromatic precursors, compounds with names like linalool and furans. So it perfectly pulls the caffeine out, but leaves those beautiful floral, fruity, and chocolatey notes safely locked away inside the bean matrix.
Okay, let's switch gears and look at the methods that throw out solvents and pressurized gases entirely. Welcome to Section 3, Water and Osmosis, the pure water alternative.
This is where the famous Swiss water process and its Mexican counterpart, the mountain water process, really shine. It's actually a pretty genius four-step process. First, they take a batch of green beans and soak them in hot water to create a completely flavor-saturated liquid called green coffee extract, or GCE. Next, this extract is passed through a proprietary carbon filter that is designed specifically to capture large caffeine molecules, but it lets all the flavor molecules slide right on through. Then, for step 3, you introduce a brand new batch of fresh coffee beans to this completely caffeine-free but highly flavor-saturated GCE.
The result? The caffeine naturally migrates out of the bean, but all that amazing flavor stays in. Think of it like this dutifully balanced dance of diffusion and osmotic pressure. Because that green coffee extract is already at perfect equilibrium, meaning it literally cannot hold any more coffee flavor compounds, osmotic pressure only drives the caffeine out. It moves from a high concentration inside the new bean to a low concentration in the liquid. The delicate flavor compounds have absolutely nowhere to go, so they remain perfectly intact inside the coffee bean. It is truly just an elegant solution. So when we line these four main contenders up against each other, you really start to see the trade-offs. Supercritical CO2, absolutely amazing for excellent flavor retention, especially if you love light roasts, but it only removes about 96 to 98% of the caffeine. On the flip side, the water processes give you absolute 99.9% caffeine removal with zero chemical residue. Sugarcane ethyl acetate sits right in a great middle ground for preserving acidity, while methylene chloride is definitely the most economical, but you risk losing some of that vital aroma. All right, moving on to Section 4, Flavor and the Roast, where we talk about adjusting the heat. Because here's the thing, after the beans leave the decaffeination facility, they are physically changed. Stripping the caffeine out literally alters the bean's structure, which means the coffee roaster has to completely rethink their approach, otherwise they'll ruin the whole batch. During extraction, the cellular matrix of the bean is swelled and partially collapsed. So this process leaves the green beans highly porous, meaning they absorb heat way faster than regular coffee once they hit the roasting drum. If a roaster just throws them in using their standard caffeinated roast profile, that decaf is going to be completely over-roasted. A really skilled roaster has to compensate by using lower charge temperatures and backing off the heat during the drying phase just to protect those delicate flavor notes we work so hard to preserve. Which leads us to our final section and a really big myth. Is it actually 100% caffeine-free? Let's look at the laboratory truths. We really need to tackle this widespread assumption head-on, the idea that decaffeinated means absolutely zero caffeine. To get a definitive answer, we're looking at some hard data from an application note by scientists at the NETShiv laboratory. To detect these tiny trace amounts of caffeine, they used a highly advanced setup called thermogravimetry DAS chromatography mass spectrometry. Yeah, let's just call it TGA-GCMS for short. This incredibly sensitive lab equipment allowed them to heat up samples of instant decaf coffee and track the exact molecular makeup of the gases being released, right down to the microgram range. There's one really specific number to pay attention to in this data, and that's 272 degrees Celsius. During the thermogravimetry phase, this is the exact sweet spot, the mass loss rate peak, where pure caffeine literally vaporizes in the lab test. By tracking the exact compounds that release around this specific temperature, the scientists were able to isolate the caffeine from all the hundreds of other complex aromatic compounds hiding in the coffee sample.
And this is where we get a twist. When you look at the chromatogram peaks hitting at exactly the 98-minute mark in the GCMS analysis, the data is undeniable. The massive peaks represent your regular, fully caffeinated coffee. But there's a smaller peak right there for the decaf sample too. This proves, without a doubt, that even in decaffeinated samples, a trace amount of caffeine is definitely still present. By running the numbers on the curve, researchers found the decaf sample contained about 9 times less caffeine than the regular coffee. But crucially, it was absolutely still there.
So what does this actually mean for the mug you're holding right now? Well, the FDA only requires a 97% removal rate to slap the decaffeinated label on a bag, so your final cup isn't completely empty of the stimulant. To put that in perspective, a standard cup of regular filter coffee can hit you with up to 195 milligrams of caffeine. A comparable cup of decaf filter coffee, that's still going to deliver somewhere between 10 and 20 milligrams. Now, for most of us, that's low enough that it won't keep you up at night, but it is certainly not zero. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a thought to chew on. If incredible chemistry and physics can literally strip away the stimulant but perfectly preserve the complex aromatics, the acidity, and the body, what actually defines the essence of your morning cup of coffee? Is it that jolt of energy, or is it the ritual and that remarkably complex flavor profile? Hopefully, peeling back the science today gives you a newfound respect for that humble decaf brew. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into the chemistry of decaffeination. Keep learning, keep asking those great questions, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.